Halo Infinite's multiplayer has been out for a while now, and after getting to play it casually and having the luxury of properly compiling my thoughts, I figured it would be a good time to give my take on the title. Before we dive in, I should probably give some context. I've never owned an Xbox in my entire life, and up until the spring of 2014, when I cleared out my bank account to put together my first gaming PC, I've always been a PlayStation guy. This isn't to say I haven't played the series in the past, getting to play Halo 3 at a friend's house, and even competing in a Halo tournament in university. However, even at the time, it was never something I took too seriously. Truth be told, I just hid in some bushes, sucker punched my opponent once, and continued hiding for the remaining 10 minutes to score an easy semi-final position. Nevertheless, the setting of Halo is universally appealing, and the character of Master Chief could ship units with that iconic look alone, but the gameplay itself never seemed nearly as compelling as other games like Titanfall or even Call of Duty. On a surface level, there just seems to be more depth to hundreds of other games in the shooter genre, and although I didn't have anything against the Halo series, it just wasn't what I looked for in a shooter. I'd argue that much of Halo Infinite's success can be attributed to the utter failings of its most formidable competitors, rather than any special sauce that makes it so enticing. Call of Duty has just seen one of its most stagnant launches in the franchise's history. Battlefield's launch has been met with reluctant acceptance among its fanbase. Overwatch 2 has been held back by Blizzard's terrible work environment, and as much as I love Rainbow Six Siege, the slowed content certainly hasn't helped maintain interest among casual players. The bar for shooters is currently set unmistakably and laughably low, and anything that just gets the fundamentals right is set up for the easiest slam dunk in terms of success. Halo Infinite offers nearly no new ideas. Its graphics are not the best this generation has to offer. It doesn't attempt to reinvent the shooter genre like so many of its contemporaries, and it's not an innovative title by any stretch of the imagination. The honest truth is that Halo Infinite isn't trying to be any of these things, and in many ways, that proves to be its greatest strength. In a world where so many shooters are chasing trends to cash in on the lucrative battle royale market or become the next monetizable hero shooter, Halo doesn't really seem that interested. The Halo franchise is one of the oldest in the shooter genre, and this has left it so incredibly confident with its own identity. Apart from a few modern quality of life updates, players can expect the same Halo experience they've been playing for the past 20 years. To many, this is a huge strength to the title, but for someone like myself, who appreciates a design philosophy almost purely and uncompromisingly built around the concept of fun and the flexibility of player expression, I tend to take issue with a few of its core design decisions. I think the biggest issue I have with Infinite's design are the weapons and equipment. The Halo developers have spent 6 whole years creating 22 intricately detailed and fantastically designed weapons, and in the final product, players will be spending 90% of their playtime using the generic MA-40 assault rifle because weapons and equipment are only available through map pickups. As much as I understand the reasoning behind this decision, as it makes it easier to balance some weapons to be objectively stronger and to maintain the classic Halo experience, I really hate its inclusion on a personal level. I'm someone who is addicted to variety and will even tend to gravitate toward weapons that are usually perceived as bad, just for fun, but in this system, I can't even do that. To get better at a meme weapon, you need to just keep testing it until you properly learn to play to its strengths and mitigate its weaknesses. However, if you lose your weapon upon dying, it makes it infinitely harder to finally surmount that learning curve. The equipment selection itself is much more limited than the weapons, but no less interesting. The grapple is absolutely fantastic to use and makes clip-worthy plays 10 times more frequent. The drop shield is a basic piece of kit that lets players throw an unexpected mix into a fight, and the threat sensor is fantastic for team play scenarios and arguably even stronger than the active camo. As simple as they are, they offer a much needed layer of depth in an otherwise basic shooter cycle. However, much like the weapons, I really just wanted to spec for the ones I wanted to use. This isn't to say that pickups shouldn't be in the game altogether, as obviously the energy sword or grav hammer wouldn't be nearly as respected if it needed to be balanced around the rest of the arsenal. With this said, when most of what I grab is worse than the generic assault rifle I'm given on spawn, it makes me wonder why I can't cripple myself for my own masochistic enjoyment. When time to kill seems to be longer than the queue times for a game, I'd rather be struggling to kill someone on my own terms. On that topic, I'd argue that the time to kill in Halo is what gives it its unique flavor more than anything else. Good players are able to respond to getting hit by either outgunning their opponent or legging it until they are more equipped to take the fight. In many ways, this is where the depth of Halo's combat is derived. You quickly learn that cracking someone's shield leaves them open for a quick headshot or a slap across the head. Almost uniquely, fighting in Halo is more or less a test of which player can solve the puzzle faster, as finding the most efficient combination of bullets, slaps, and grenades will be the key to your success in most circumstances. It does however cause something of an identity crisis when it comes to the weapons, as although the sound design and weapon feedback seem to indicate that these guns would stop an entire herd of elephants in a single shot, in practice they seem to do less damage than a 5-year-old with Hulk hands. Once again, these terrible guns are an absolute joy to shoot, but I just wish I had the option to use them at my own leisure. Despite this particular personal gripe with the game, it's actually an absolute joy to play, and getting a whole squad to really communicate makes the experience leaps and bounds more enjoyable than going solo. The current game modes aren't particularly anything groundbreaking, but by simply having an objective, whatever that may be, teams start to form rudimentary strategies that might give them an edge. Owing to the absurd time to kill, simply running as a team is laughably strong against an opponent that doesn't share your same enthusiasm for cooperation, meaning you can often absolutely stomp casual players by doing things as simple as waiting for a full stack to push an objective or coordinating a grenade barrage. I tend to like games with a lot of meaningful interaction between myself and my teammates, but as that isn't really what the Halo franchise is about, I could still appreciate the huge benefits teamwork had to offer. What I will say is that whether it was the matchmaking algorithm or the sheer volume of players, team balancing in my experience was absolutely immaculate, and there were so many matches where the outcome would be decided in the last 10 seconds of a match. Keeping with Halo getting the fundamentals right, the map design is also wonderful, as although they are aesthetically pretty similar, their layouts are well thought out, varied, and surprisingly quick to memorize after only a handful of rounds. My only real gripe is how some modes are limited to only a handful of maps. However, I suspect this is just something that will be remedied over the life of the game. We now come to the enormous corporate elephant in the room, which is of course the monetization and progression. Long-time viewers might remember a video from last year when we put together a very long and very expensive analysis of battle passes over 10 different games, and without even needing to open another Excel document, Halo Infinite still boasts one of the worst battle passes I've ever seen. Its progression is tied to challenges that need to be specifically selected, the experience gains are unfathomably slow, and the purchasable rewards as they currently stand would cost a player roughly $1,000 if they were to buy them directly. One of the most disappointing things of all is that customization in a vacuum is incredibly detailed, and unlike a lot of its competitors, actually quite compelling. I know next to nothing about the Halo lore, but what kind of shooter fan wouldn't want to deck out a sweet looking set of Spartan armor before rolling into battle with the homies? The problem, however, is that I feel absolutely zero motivation to even attempt to grind through this insanely unrewarding slogfest. I'm usually a person to buy a battle pass day one, because if I can see myself playing a game for several nights a week, $10 for 3 months is a pretty good deal for a steady stream of random rewards. Battle passes at their very core are designed to do two things, which is to monetize a game in a way players perceive to be fair, and to increase user retention between larger updates. To this end, Halo Infinite's Battle Pass does the complete opposite, as not only does grinding through its restrictive challenges sound incredibly unenjoyable, but having the audacity to charge me for the privilege is simply laughable. From what players can tell, this seems to be something the devs probably knew about well before launch and are just listening to the higher ups, but in the end, this is all part of the plan. Game publishers will very often release a game with comically terrible monetization, wait for the impending player backlash, before finally claiming praise when they eventually make the system slightly less terrible. It's a long game negotiating technique we've seen hundreds of times before with countless other titles, but in this particular instance, it feels especially out of place. Halo is the Xbox wonder child, and Master Chief has been its de facto poster boy for the past 20 years. Halo sells Xboxes, and for a company like Microsoft, it should be treating the franchise as a trump card too insanely enticing to miss. If I were the head of Xbox, I'd be making the monetization and progression of Halo Infinite so unbelievably generous that it would be genuinely difficult to justify not buying an Xbox or signing up for the Game Pass. Microsoft is often in contention for the most valuable company in the United States, meaning it's not like they don't have the money to even run Halo Infinite at a loss in order to make back their revenue through Game Pass subscriptions and licensing fees. While other game companies are becoming increasingly more aggressive in their monetization strategies, Microsoft has the capacity to make every other franchise look bad in comparison. Microsoft's goal isn't for Halo to be a cash cow or to even necessarily break even, but for it to act as a hook to drive more people toward the Xbox Game Pass and the entire Microsoft games ecosystem. Game consoles themselves are usually sold at the slimmest possible margins, because when you're able to pick up 30% of the revenue for every game sold on your platform, it really doesn't matter if the units themselves don't make any money, and the Halo franchise itself should act as an extension of this grand scheme monetization strategy. I've said this before, but people tend to spend a lot of money if they perceive that for once in their life, they get to rip off a company, and I absolutely believe that this is the true competitive advantage that Microsoft isn't deciding to employ. All I'm saying is if they can buy Bethesda for $7.5 billion, they can probably afford to offer a consumer-friendly monetization system for its flagship game. As you've likely noticed by this point, very little of my criticism toward Halo Infinite is actually directed at the game itself. The team at 343 have absolutely nailed the fundamentals that other studios seem to find so challenging, and outside of my personal preferences for what I want in a shooter, I think they created a phenomenal title. At this point, however, I find it so difficult to justify playing this game over the countless other shooters on the market, when as it currently stands, they at least pretend to respect my time, while Halo Infinite absolutely does not. If this is truly fixed, and I feel as if Halo has earned that investment of time, then I expect I'll be coming back intermittently, long into its 10-year lifespan. But if not, it will remain as a franchise I'll happily respect from a distance.